So Games Workshop has given us a look at the contents page of the new Pariah book, and kind of surprisingly, there are no faction updates here for either Necrons or Sisters of Battle. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy-focused 40k channel, where we've been covering the news as it comes out for the Psychic Awakening books and the transition into 9th edition. So Psychic Awakening Pariah is the last book in the Psychic Awakening series, as the forces of the Indomitus Crusade meet the Necrons' Pariah Nexus, and it's very much a prelude to the greater release of 9th edition. Up till now, pretty much every one of the Psychic Awakening books has given major updates to at least one faction in the game, in terms of things like new stratagems, relics and warlord traits, or army-wide special rules to augment the faction. It seems like Pariah is going to be a bit of an exception to that rule, and in terms of the match play game, the only real content that we're getting are updated datasheets for 4 new characters, and the rules from the Inquisition Index in print in a book. Other than that, it's mainly a campaign book with plenty of other theatres of war missions. So let's take a look at what we've got. So as per normal, we've got a decent section of background called the Calades Quest. I think they have clarified before, I think that's the name of either a ship or a small fleet of the Imperium. The first one that makes contact with the area of space known as the Pariah Nexus, and goes on to have a bit of a punch-up with the Necrons there. We then have something called Index Inquisition, which I would predict at the moment looks like it's going to be very similar to the Index Inquisition that they released in White Dwarf. The Assassins have had a similar treatment recently. They had a White Dwarf rules section for Officio Assassinorum, and they were included in War of the Spider as an Index Assassins, with the datasheets for the Assassins in there, their old stratagems reprinted, and a couple of slightly tweaked ways that you can fill them with armies, and a couple of the wording on some of the stratagems again slightly tweaked, but not in a massively meaningful way. I would be surprised if the Inquisition get any more than this. It's not out of the question that they might add in a fair few more stratagems for them to make them more interesting options in game. I guess we'll wait and see if there's anything more for them later in the week. The sections of the book are all the same, all the datasheets are what they had before, with the exception that they've added Lord Inquisitor Kyrodraxus, the very nice new miniature that we've seen previewed, the Radical Xenos Inquisitor with the Shuriken Catapult, and the Pet Dragon. I don't think they'll need to update any of the army rules compared with previously, like they did with the Assassins, as Inquisitors already work okay with Space Marine detachments. They don't do the silly thing that they did with Space Marines, which means they break combat doctrines, which would mean that you basically never take an Assassin in a Space Marine army. Aside from that, from match play, there's literally just the 2 other datasheets, Ephrael Stern and Kiganil, the Harlequin character, which they have already previewed, and in one of the Warhammer community articles, they have mentioned that these 2 can be taken by any Imperial army, and it sounds like they won't just be limited to Sisters of Battle or Inquisition, for example. I'd imagine, based on the Assassin's Imperial Agents keyword, then they might well feed into that as well. Maybe you'll be able to ally them to any one Imperial detachment, and they'll be able to join it without taking up a slot, much like the Assassins can. Complete theory, of course. I'm sure we'll find out how they work very soon. The way that it's written in this contents, though, does imply to me that they have the same datasheet. They don't have a separate one for Kiganil. To be honest, as he's a named Harlequin character, I thought it would have been quite fun to have him be able to join a Harlequin's army as well, but I'm going to guess that's likely not going to be the case based solely on this preview. Next we have the only Necron in the book in Illuminor Seraz, who I'm sure will be massively tanked up compared with what it was previously. He is a lot beefier, and he's required a bit of Blackstone for some anti-psychic shenanigans, I'm sure. Aside from those, all of the rest are campaigns and mission updates. There's a section called Battles Beyond the Veil, which I would guess might be some rules for fighting battles in the Pariah Nexus itself, and any mind-numbing effects that it has on warriors within the boundaries of it, and 3 Crucible of War missions, including Breakout, Layer by Layer, and Extraction, so it could be some interesting things for narrative-type games. They also have quite a generous amount of Theatres of War missions, with 9 different Theatres of War, set in various locations across the whole Psychic Awakening series, including the Webway, the Shrine Worlds, Devoured Worlds, Demon Worlds, Hive Worlds, Forge Worlds, Perilous Jungles, Derelict Worlds, and Necron Tomb Worlds. It sounds like the aim might have been 1 per Psychic Awakening release so far. A lot of them broadly seem to translate, such as the Webway for the first one with the Eldar, and the Shrine World from Faith and Fury, and so on. Again, she'll give you some food for thought for narrative type games. They mentioned that there will be various different twists and rules and stratagems for these different warscapes, but these aren't going to be used in more general games of 40k, if you're not playing one of these exact scenarios. So I think that the obvious sore spot in the book is that there's no greater army update for Necrons in the book, aside from just the datasheet for Illuminor Seraz. I honestly can see why they've done that. They have now confirmed that the Necron Codex will be coming out very early in 9th, so it does look like that's going to be sooner rather than later. And I'm sure with the expanded dynasty options, probably loads more stratagems, and a ridiculous amount new units from what we've seen, it's going to be an update far, far above anything that any of the other races got in their Psychic Awakening updates. so sadly the Necron players will have to wait a little bit for any meaningful changes to their army, but frankly I think they get swings and roundabouts, as the faction is going to get more love than virtually any faction in the game ever gets in a single release. I know Space Marines get things pretty consistently, but I don't think even they have ever had so many models drop all at once. In addition, we already know that there's 3 new dynasties going to be in this new Necron Codex, and I'm absolutely certain that there'll be expanded lists of stratagems and relics and things to go alongside this. I can see though, when you've got a big book with a Necron on the cover called Pariah, I can see how this is going to wind people up a bit if there's almost no Necron content in the entire book. From my point of view, if you're a Necron player, I'd probably advise just not even bothering buying this, unless you really want the lore, campaign or missions, as when the Necron Codex does come out, I'm sure that Illuminor Serraz's rules will get into that as well, so you really won't need this whatsoever to run your Necron army, so you may as well save yourself picking up one expensive book. If Games Workshop had put some meaningful Necron rules in this, then I could see a point where Necron players might want to pick up this and their Codex, and then have to lug around both to every single game, which I don't think is really a sensible idea. And I can fully see why Games Workshop put the Necron rules all in the upcoming Codex, as opposed to split them between 2 publications. On the other hand, I'm a little bit sorry for the Sisters of Battle. I know Games Workshop had at no point said that Sisters of Battle update rules will be coming in this book, but seeing as they're one of the only factions that hasn't had any love from the Psychic Awakening, and there was the inclusion of Ephrael Stern in the book, I thought they might get some bits along here just to add to their army, even if it was something small. I suspect that the majority of the Psychic Awakening books were already sort of set in place before the Sisters Codex even came out, as its proper release was only this year, when the Psychic Awakening books were already in full swing. I suspect that this book was already being finalised by the point when the Sisters Codex came out, not giving them opportunity to put any more rules updates in here. It'll be interesting to see if Ephrael is worth including alongside the Sisters army. She very much fits with the aesthetic far more than most other Imperial forces. And there's always the option of allying in Inquisitors, which is a very fluffy choice alongside a Sisters list, so it'll be interesting to see if Kyria Draxius can add anything else to a Sisters army. So from my point of view, I think that Pariah is looking just a bit weak compared with some of the other Psychic Awakening books, at least in terms of hard updates for the game, and is a bit more aimed at narrative players, or people who want some rules for their Inquisition in print rather than in a White Dwarf article. I do suspect that they'll sell less of this book compared with quite a lot of the other Psychic Awakenings that they've brought out. So let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. I will of course be looking at any previews that they give us for the characters this week, so feel free to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see any analysis of more news. And finally, if you have been enjoying the channel, I'd just like to mention that the Auspex Tactics Patreon page exists, and it is what allows me to keep on making these videos quite so regularly. If you've been enjoying and would like to support, then the channel's Patreon link is down in the video description below, and people who sign up on the Patreon also get a fair few other advantages, regularly getting to see new videos before they come out. There's frequent polls as to what sort of videos you'd like to see next, and there's regular monthly prize draws where I post out quite large sets of miniatures to lucky winning patrons, including 3 copies of the Indomitors box in August. If any of that sounds good to you, then the link is down in the video description below, and a big thank you to my current patrons for allowing this channel to be possible. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.